North. Let the doors be open. They told me. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable député de Saint-Laurent.
Women's rights, including a woman's right to choose, I was thrilled that our government invested $4.1 million to support organizations that help women receive reproductive health services. And that Budget 2023 has carved out $36 million over 3 years to renew the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund to make abortions and other sexual reproductive health care information and services available and accessible to more Canadians. In contrast, the Conservatives are hell-bent on restricting access to safe and legal abortion under every false legislative pretext they can imagine. The Conservatives have shown us time and time again that they think reproductive rights are negotiable. The latest example of this is C-311. The bill is a transparent attempt to reopen the abortion debate in Canada. On this side of the House, we will always stand up for women's fundamental rights, even as Conservatives try and turn back the clock.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 100th anniversary of the famous Vachon cakes and their bakery located in my riding in Sainte-Marie. In 1923, Rosanna Giroux started a business by buying a bakery for $7,000 so that her children, who had moved to the United States, would come back home. The bread was selling well, and Rosanna started to bake sweet treats on the wood stove at home. The rest is history. La Pâtisserie, as we call it locally, has been and still is an employer to many families in Beauce. Located in the heart of town, the bakery faced many challenges over the years, including frequent floods. But for 100 years, and recently, thanks to the major investments by owner Bimbo Canada, the bakery has been firing up its ovens only a few hundred meters away from where it all started, in the house of Rosanna and Joseph Arcade Vachon. Congratulations to the entire team. And for your 100th anniversary, long live Vachon Bakery. Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to the translation services in the House. And today, Émilie Vachon interpreted in my statement. She is the great-granddaughter of the founders.
L'honorable député d'Orléans.
Monsieur le Président, it is with emotion that I join my community of Orléans to express our deepest sympathies to the family and numerous friends of Thomas Allen Twiddle, known as Al, following his passing on May 1st. Anyone who has crossed paths with Al will tell you that it is simply impossible to list all of his contribution to our community. In his necrology, and I says, and I quote, Big Al was a fixture in the community. Much like the local parks, nature trails, hockey rinks, and tennis courts he helped build. He was a tireless advocate for Petrie Island, a beautiful oasis he helped develop in the East End. As an Orleans resident and representative, I had the privilege of collaborating with this great advocate of nature, environment, and education. So thank you, Al, for teaching us the importance of caring for our environment.
L'honorable député d'Abitibi-Bay James Nunavik EU.
Monsieur le Président, le mois dernier.
Mr. Speaker, last month, Madame Nicole Garceau and Mr. Michel Pilon received a medal from Quebec's National Assembly to highlight their contribution to artistic development at Abitibi-Témiscamingue and for their ability to reach beyond the region. Mr. Pilon was a director of a theatre troupe, La Scie de la Deuxième Scène, also did drama for over 40 years, and he's the writer of the dramatic comedy Le Théâtre de la Vieille Gare, or the Theatre of the Old Train Station. Madame Marceau founded in 2003 the Festival de Contes et Légendes, the Legends and Stories Festival, every fall. It's a festival held every fall in Val d'Or and on the roads of the villages and in the fields of the region. There's many local storytellers. In 2023, the festival will celebrate its 20th edition, and thanks to them, they have had a chance to have their voices heard.
C'est la saison des convocations et je voudrais souligner le
It's convocation season, and I want to highlight the hard work of students at all of our learning establishments, including St. Mary's University in Halifax. I especially want to congratulate my daughter Marina, who will be receiving a degree in science with a major in biology and a minor in French. I want to acknowledge the dedication of the faculty and staff guiding our future leaders. In particular, the Centre International d'Études Françaises, or the International Centre for French Studies, provided my daughter with training in French, in its language and its culture. She participated in overseas programs at the Université Catholique de l'Ouest in Angers, in France, as a proud alumnus of St. Mary's. I know that the time that all students, including my daughter, spent there prepared them well for their future endeavours. Congratulations to all.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, jurors play an integral role in our justice system, often at a considerable personal cost, from being away from family and work to suffering from mental health issues after a difficult trial. Nothing can fully prepare someone for jury service. Earlier this year, a bill that I championed to better support juror mental health became law. But there's still lots of work to do. The federal government has a key leadership role in working with the provinces and territories to bolster juror supports, and there needs to be greater public awareness. That's why I fully support Bill S-252 to dedicate the second week of May as National Jury Duty Appreciation Week. I want to thank all jurors for their important contributions to Canada's justice system.
The Honourable Member for Whitby.
Canada produces world-class athletes that go on to achieve great things. And today I want to acknowledge the accomplishments of 3 stars. Priscilla Lopes-Schlepp is a track and field champion who won a bronze medal in the women's 100-meter hurdles at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Derek Suddens was a member of the Canadian bronze-winning team at the 1996 U19 World Field Lacrosse Games in Tokyo. Adrienne Woodley has won 4 national championships in 110-meter hurdles. What do these athletes have in common, Mr. Speaker? All of them come from Whitby, Ontario, my riding. And on April 29th, myself and community leaders from across Whitby had the chance to hear their stories and celebrate their accomplishments as they were inducted into the Whitby Sports Hall of Fame. Please join me in congratulating Priscilla, Derek, and Adrian for their many successes and for supporting those who aspire to follow in their footsteps.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, since Russia began its further genocidal invasion of Ukraine, I've advocated that we do everything possible to ensure that Ukraine achieves a decisive victory. Our government has said that Canada will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win, that victory is the only option. Victory is the only option for Ukraine, but it's also the only option for Canada. If we want to stop genocide, global food shortages, global inflation, and if we want to protect our own sovereignty and security, we must ensure that Ukraine achieves a decisive victory, which means that Ukraine wins the war by ensuring it recovers all of its territory, and that it wins the peace, which means that it is secure as part of NATO, that we help Ukraine rebuild, that Russia pays for that rebuild, and that there's justice for Russian war crimes. A Ukrainian counteroffensive is coming, the outcome of which we cannot predict. Regardless of that outcome, over the coming days, weeks, and months, I hope that we commit today that we will stand with the Ukrainian people until they achieve that decisive victory, because victory is the only option for Ukraine, and it's the only option for Canada. Slava Ukraini.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, catch and release for repeat violent offenders and decriminalizing hard drugs have boosted violent crime and drug overdoses across the country. In downtown Calgary, I can see the impact firsthand. Property crime is up 65%. Addictions and homelessness are up. Most troubling, deaths from overdose went up. People have stopped taking the C train because it's not safe. Seniors have told me they are more isolated because they don't feel safe on the streets. It's simply not working. What is working is the Alberta model, a system of care developed by the Alberta government over the past 3 years that is centered on transforming addiction treatment to focus on long-term recovery. The world is watching Alberta succeed and taking note. Recovery is possible, and everyone should be supported in getting the care they need. The federal government also needs to do its part. The Liberals need to address the bail reform, which has been called for by law enforcement and victim advocates across the country. The Conservative government will reverse easy access to bail and ensure serious, repeat, violent offenders remain behind bars as they await trial.
Honourable member for London North Centre.
Our country is an example of democracy, prosperity, and freedom.
That has been made to secure those values was recognized this weekend in London. HMCS Prevost, an honoured naval detachment, recognized the fallen in the Battle of the Atlantic, the longest continuous battle of World War II, Mr. Speaker. Over 70,000 died on the Allied side, including over 4,000 Canadians. They died trying to secure shipping lanes vital to the Allied effort, shipping lanes that secured the delivery of food, equipment, oil, and other vital needs. Without it, without this battle and its success, the Allied effort would not have been successful. Mr. Speaker, as I say, HMCS Prevost plays a vital role in our community. It's an example of a naval detachment that cares, that gives back.
In particular, Mr. Speaker, congratulations to the young members of this organization. They're an example of patriotism and service to our country.
The Honourable Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, this past week and a half has seen the Liberals stoop to a new low. Rather than accept responsibility for their inaction on the threats against a family member of the MP from Wellington Halton Hills, the Liberals chose to victim blame and gaslight our colleague, who is widely regarded as the most honourable member of this House. Government should seek to build trust and earn the respect of people. That includes standing up for our fellow citizens and members of Parliament. This isn't the Prime Minister's focus, though. His priority is political division and going on vacation. But our Conservative leader is working hard to unite Canadians and earn their trust and respect. He will bring home freedom for Canadians from foreign dictatorships who seek to intimidate and control diaspora communities by implementing a foreign operative registry and by expelling rogue diplomats. He'll bring home a united country and stand up for all Canadians, unlike the Prime Minister, who only cares about his elite Liberal friends. It's time for the Prime Minister to step aside so a Conservative government can fix what he broke.
The Honourable Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry.
Canadians are out of money and this Prime Minister is out of touch. After 8 years, the cost of living is at an all-time high. Paychecks are wearing thin. Housing, rent, and mortgages have all doubled. Their carbon tax will add 41 cents a litre to the price of gas.
If you can hear my voice, please say shh. Good. I want to remind everyone that SO31s are taking place. The Honourable Member for Stormont Dundas, South Glengarry, from the top, please.
Canadians are out of money and this Prime Minister is out of touch. After 8 years, the cost of living is at an all-time high. Paychecks are wearing thin. Housing, rent, and mortgages have all doubled. Their carbon tax will add 41 cents a litre to the price of gas. And after 8 years, they're soft on crime policies and a broken bail system. Violent crime has gone up a staggering 32% in this country. Canadians are struggling, but this Prime Minister has never had it so good. 5 lavish vacations this year alone, most recently in New York, taking selfies with celebrities, and an $80,000 free vacation to Jamaica that was conveniently paid for by a Trudeau Foundation donor. The contrast between this out-of-touch Prime Minister and our Conservative leader could not be more clear. Our leader is here on the road in this country, meeting with hardworking Canadians, hearing their stories, and actually shows up for work here in Ottawa. Canadians are out of money. This Prime Minister is out of touch. But, Mr. Speaker, soon the Prime Minister...
L'honorable député d'Hochelaga.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui...
Mr. Speaker, I was supposed to talk about Mother's Day today, but my mother and all those who fought for a woman's right to choose expect every single woman in this House to denounce any attempt to roll that right back. I'd like to echo the superb speech by the member for Outremont on the proposed private member's bill by a member of the Conservative Party. Its purpose is to erode access to abortion in Canada. The Conservatives are hiding the infringement on a woman's free choice behind the intention of conferring rights to the fetus in the context of crime, which would help open up the case for restrictions on abortion. This new attempt by the Conservatives is unacceptable. The Liberal Party will always stand with women to protect their right to choose. Now, the question is whether the leader of the Conservative Party is really pro-choice, because an abstention or a vote in favour of that bill is a vote in favour of rolling back women's rights.
For Churchill, Kiwatanut, ASCII.
As the outdoor season begins again in our north for soccer, I recognize the girls and women who continue to blaze trails. Soccer, the fastest growing sport in Canada, is affordable and inclusive. For Canadian girls and women, Christine Sinclair, a legend, and our national team shows us that soccer is our sport. Nationally, Canada Soccer has just elected its first ever woman, President Charmaine Crooks. We are on track to make history at the Women's World Cup this summer, and as we gear up to co-host the Men's World Cup for the first time ever in 2026. In our north, the excitement is growing. Let's seize the moment and make sure that girls and all our kids are part of our vision for soccer going forward. Let's support the work of volunteers, coaches, refs, women like Savannah Henderson, Michelle Day, Stephanie Davis, Carmen Ho, Erica Christensen, Sandra Lambert, and many others who give our kids a chance. It is time for Canada to invest in soccer for our girls and all our kids here in our north and across the country. Our message, soccer belongs here.
L'honorable député de Longueuil-Saint-Hubert.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui,
today, I want to highlight and express my pride in a young Quebecois artist who's taking part in the world's greatest singing contest, Eurovision. More than 200 million people will watch next Saturday. Fatima Zahra Hafdi, also known as La Zara, was born in Montreal and grew up in Longueuil. Nominated as New Artist of the Year by the Adisc Gala in 2022, she was chosen by France's organizing committee to represent the country, but also to carry Quebec's colors to the international stage. Her song, Évidemment, is inspiring and exclusively in French. It's clearly a winner's song. It highlights her voice and her culture. I invite all of you to go listen to it. On May 13th, Quebec and France will be able to celebrate this incredible artist's victory. La Zara, you're a pride, a source of pride for all Quebecers, and we're all behind you.
The honourable member for Foothills.
Canadians are out of money, and the Prime Minister is out of touch and often out of the country. While Canadians struggle to put food on the table and a roof over their heads, the Prime Minister has very different priorities. Here are the numbers that the Prime Minister is concerned about. $80,000, the value of a trip paid for by Trudeau Foundation donors. 15, the number of celebrities he met during a lavish trip to New York. 45, the number of selfies taken. But thanks to the Liberal NDP Carbon Tax Coalition, here are the numbers that concern Canadians. 0, the number of emission targets hit. 41 cents, the increase in the price of gas per litre. $150,000 a year, the price an average farm family is going to have to pay thanks to the carbon tax. 34%, the amount grocery prices are predicted to increase by 2030. Canadians are living a nightmare and paying for the Prime Minister's authoritarian dream. A Conservative government will scrap the carbon tax scam, will bring home powerful paychecks, and will ensure that the dreams of Canadians come first.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to pay honour to a remarkable young man from Edmonton Millwoods, Jaspreet Singh Pandher, who passed away on January 20th at the age of 32. He spent several years on our Liberal government team serving Canadians and building a better country. Jaspreet had a deep passion for Canadian politics and dedicated himself to advancing inclusivity and equality. He was humble, worked hard, spoke thoughtfully, and always knew exactly how to make people laugh. To the family and friends of Jaspreet that are here in Ottawa today, and all those who knew him, irrespective of political stripes, I extend my sincere condolences. May Jaspreet Singh Pandher's legacy continue to inspire those he touched for many, many years to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister couldn't be more out of touch with reality. He heard about problems with passports, but he didn't understand that it was that they couldn't get passports. He thought the problem was with the images, and that's why he erased Quebec City, Terry Fox, and the Battle of Vimy Ridge. 3,598 Canadians died there to defend our freedom and country. Why does the Prime Minister want to get rid of that part of our essential history? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians will get their passports on time and be able to travel, and they will be able to be proud of their country and its history. But I'd like to point out that no one is going to be lectured by the Conservative Party on how we treat veterans. They were always quick to use them as a symbol or for photo ops, but they cut service offices for veterans all across the country. They cut funding to veterans, and they kept on attacking veterans rather than supporting them. Here on this side, we will continue to be there to defend our veterans, and we will always do that. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was, why is he deleting our veterans from our history? Why is he deleting the 3,598 Canadians who gave their lives so that Canada could have freedom and victory at Vimy? He's erasing them, and with that, he is insulting all of our veterans. The Prime Minister, why will the Prime Minister not stand up for our history, get connected to reality, and keep the images in our passport that make us so proud to be Canadian?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Right now, Mr. Speaker, veterans across the country are being reminded of what the Conservatives did around veterans. They wrap themselves in the flags and the symbols anytime they can, but in fact, they nickeled and dimed our veterans. They used them for photo ops. They shut down 9 veteran service offices across the country so they could try and save a little money through cuts. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have always disrespected veterans while they wrap themselves in the imagery. We're going to continue to deliver for the veterans every single day.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Despite that high school drama production, Mr. Speaker, he just closed every single veterans office in Canada by causing the biggest strike in Canadian history. But back to the passport.
Order. Order. Okay, there seems to be some excitement building. I want to nip it in the bud. We're here to have a clear debate, which means when someone's speaking, not everyone shouts, regardless of whatever the side is. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top, please.
This is the new passport they're so excited about, Mr. Speaker. They erased Vimy Ridge to put in an image of a squirrel eating a nut. They erased Terry Fox, a guy who ran halfway across the country to fight cancer, to put in a man raking leaves. And they erased Quebec City in order to put in what appears to be an image of a boyhood Prime Minister swimming at Harrington Lake. Could this Prime Minister be any more out of touch with Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives are trying to pick fights here in the House, we're focused on delivering for Canadians. As we move forward with the Budget Implementation Act that's protecting homeowners with anti-house flipping measures, as we're stepping up on...
I'm going to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. It seems to be starting to pick up again. I'm going to ask everyone to listen to each other, not interrupt each other. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservative Party continues to try to pick fights in the House, this government is focused on delivering for Canadians, for hardworking families and for workers. While they filibuster in committee against the Budget Implementation Act that's going to create greater transfers for workers with the Canada Workers Benefit, deliver on an anti-flipping measures to help homeowners, moving forward in significant measures to help Canadians, they're playing games, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on affordability for Canadians. They're focused on picking fights.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, when the Prime Minister found out of the closing of the Maine, famous deli, he tweeted, "Ouch." But his ouch was not for the 35-year-long employee who lost his job. His ouch was that he's not going to be able to eat his favorite sandwich anymore. We found out from a loyal customer that the reason why the Maine closed is because food prices have skyrocketed under this Prime Minister. He's determined now to increase his carbon tax threefold, which will send food prices flying higher. Why doesn't he park his plane, cancel the hypocrisy, and axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Speaker, Montrealers, like Canadians all across the country, they are deeply
Order. Order. I don't think I have to remind the members not to use proper names, but order. 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 Okay, you've got it out of your system. Now let's go on. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, Montrealers, like Canadians all across the country, care deeply about protecting the environment and also know that the only way to create good jobs, strong communities, and a better future is to fight climate change while we build a stronger economy. That's exactly what we have a plan to do. That is why we put a price on pollution and are sending the climate action incentive back to Canadians where it applies so that 8 out of 10 Canadians are doing better with that. We are fighting climate change and building a stronger economy, two things that the Conservatives apparently know nothing about.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The only one thing that the Prime Minister wants to know about is himself. That's why he can't help but using his own name right here on the floor of the House of Commons. And, Mr. Speaker, it's why the only concern he had about a business closing is he's not going to get his favorite sandwich. That means people are losing their jobs. Customers are losing the ability to eat. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals now. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, 1.5 million going to the food bank. The carbon tax hits the farmers that make the food, the truckers that ship it, and therefore it taxes the food itself. Why won't he bring down food prices, bring home lower prices, and axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite wants to talk about how we use social media respectively, let's remind everyone that he used misogynistic, anti-women hashtags to make sure that he was reaching out to dark corners of the internet with all of his YouTube videos until we called him out for it. Mr. Speaker, that kind of misogyny, the casual approach that they take on that side against fighting women's rights, against reopening the abortion debate, around being absolutely irresponsible with the approach and standing up for rights, it continues from them. So yes, let's judge each other on our social media. I look forward to Canadians looking carefully at what he said.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the government of Quebec resolutely took a stand against the federal government's desire to bring in 500,000 immigrants per year. There are issues relating to costs of health care, child care, education, and housing, but obviously there's the fundamental issue of language and culture. I'd like to know from the Prime Minister directly, this is the message. What does he have to say to the Premier of Quebec when he wants to impose this change to immigration levels? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, every year the federal government puts forward an immigration plan for the next 3 years. It takes into account economic challenges, labor challenges, forecasts for positive growth for the country. And obviously, Quebec has a lot of control over its own immigration levels, but Canada-wide, it's up to the federal government to decide. And as long as we're putting forward a responsible plan for economic growth, we're doing even more than any other government, any other federal government has ever done to protect the French language and French immigration. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the CAQ is opposed to this level of immigration, 500,000 a year. The Bloc is obviously against it. The NDP is very uncomfortable with this. And the Liberals from Quebec, they feel this in their bones. Nobody's comfortable with this in Quebec. Nobody in the National Assembly in Quebec City. What does the Prime Minister have to say to them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we presented our immigration levels in November. It took Pellado and Quebecers' coverage for them to stand up and take notice. We will continue to put forward an ambitious plan to meet our country's economic goals for growth, and we will protect minority communities all across the country. We've always respected Quebec. We've always protected the French language. But if I go from Abitibi to the Beauce or any other region in Quebec, I can see that business people are saying we need labor, we need workers, and that's exactly what we're delivering. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
This Liberal government has a very cozy friendship with the pharmaceutical industry. In fact, in less than a year, they met with the pharmaceutical lobbyists more than 126 times. Ooh. It's no wonder we are the third most expensive place for medication in the world. In 2017, the Prime Minister promised to make a small change which would have significantly reduced the cost of medication, but has yet to do it 6 years later. So when will the Prime Minister stop protecting billionaires and start protecting Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no one in Canada should have to choose between putting food on their table and paying for their prescription medications. That's why we're continuing our work to lower drug prices. The member opposite speaks about small changes. We've made big changes by moving forward on bulk buying power, by including and developing a national strategy for drugs for rare diseases, and progressing towards a universal national pharmacare program, which includes tabling legislation and working to have it passed by the end of this year. We will continue to work to build a better healthcare system for all Canadians, and we welcome everyone in this House working together on that.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
The Prime Minister made a promise in 2017, 6 years later has not done it because he's in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry. Look, Canada.
Canada is the third most expensive country in the world for prescription drugs. That's quite something. More expensive than Germany, more expensive than France, more expensive than Australia. The only places that are more expensive are the U.S. and Switzerland. And it's easy to see why. The Liberals are in Big Pharma's pocket. Will the Prime Minister stop protecting his billionaire buddies and start helping the people who need their drugs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, over the years, we've taken concrete steps to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, and we will keep doing that through a national strategy for rare medications for rare illnesses, and we've also set up a national system for pharmacare, and this legislation will hopefully be passed by the end of this year. So that we can have a better and the best possible healthcare system for all Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Since the Prime Minister promised to reduce housing costs, the cost of a down payment has doubled on average, and the mortgage payments have doubled. The average cost for an average unit in the big cities has doubled. And what has CMHC done? They've increased executive bonuses. 100% of executives at CMHC got a bonus. And that bonus is paid for by people buying homes. Why should Canadians have to pay twice? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is talking about this issue but offering no solutions. All we've heard the Conservatives propose is rebate for the owners of big buildings. We, on the other hand, came up with an incentive for first-time home buyers, and we've also invested in construction and repair for housing units, and we've encouraged municipalities to accelerate the building of 100,000 new units, and that's to name a few things.
The result is that the cost of an average mortgage has doubled. The cost of an average down payment has doubled. The average cost of rent in the 10 biggest cities have doubled. Double trouble. What is the Prime Minister doing to the federal gatekeepers at the CMHC, whose mandate it is to carry out his policies? He's given them $27 million of bonuses. Now home buyers will have to pay high prices for the house and then fees to the CMHC so that his executive gatekeepers can get more money. Why doesn't he stop giving money to gatekeepers and start getting out of the way so we can build affordable homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
While the only plan the Conservatives put forward for housing is cuts to programs and cuts to investments, we're helping Canadians save up for their first loan, including by the first-time home buyer incentive and tax-free first home savings account. We're investing in building and repairing more homes, including supporting municipalities to fast-track the creation of 100,000 new homes. We're ensuring homes are used as homes by curbing unfair practices that drive up prices, including banning foreign home buyers and federal anti-flipping rule, which unfortunately is being filibustered by Conservatives who don't want to see the budget passed with measures to help Canadians right across the board.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, actually, we are blocking the disastrous inflationary budget that will cost an extra $4,200 to every family in Canada. But he says he wants to accelerate home buying, building. In fact, his own housing agency says this year home construction will go down by 50,000 homes. That's a one-third reduction of over the already pitiful numbers from last year. In other words, we're building less houses while bringing in more people. This housing crisis is getting worse because of his gatekeeping. Why won't he get out of the way so that we can bring homes workers can afford?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only plan the Conservatives have on housing is to pick fights with municipalities, with provinces, and ensure cuts to programs that will prevent people from getting homes. We have continued to step up on investing and repairing more homes, including supporting municipalities to fast-track the creation of 100,000 homes. We're tying access to infrastructure funding to provinces and territories to housing supply, Mr. Speaker. We're converting surplus federal lands to affordable housing. We will continue to step up to support Canadians with a broad plan with plenty of different measures to make sure we're going at the housing challenge from all angles, contrary to them who have no plan.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, we know we have a plan because he just for the first time plagiarized it on the floor of the House of Commons. He literally listed all the things I've been saying in the House of Commons. I only had to say it 40 times for him to get it. But you know what? This is progress. But, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, we know he won't bring it home because he never actually gets these things done. In fact, speaking of homes, one realtor predicts that it's now going to cost $3,000 to rent a room in a boarding house as the norm by 2030. That is the track we're on right now. Why won't he get out of the way so that we can bring homes that Canadians can afford?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it goes back and forth a little bit, but I can assure the members opposite that we are actually right now signing agreements and have been for quite a while that include obligations around densification around public transit and tie infrastructure funding to building houses in places like Hamilton and elsewhere. So they were glad to be able to take ideas from us and now blame us for taking ideas from them. Mr. Speaker, it's nice to hear some ideas from them, but Mr. Speaker, what we always see from them is the choice of cuts. While we choose to invest, we choose to be there for Canadians, and we're building houses, homes, and opportunities for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, I'm flattered that he claims to agree with my plan, but our plan included accelerating building permits by the municipalities and requiring all public transit stations to have more housing around them. That was my plan, and now he's copying it, but I don't think he'll ever deliver. He's all talk, no action. Will he finally allow Canadians to build homes that Canadians can afford? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since our national housing strategy was launched in 2017, we've seen millions of Canadians get access to new housing because of federal investments. But there's a lot more to be done still. But all we see from the Conservatives is that they want to squabble with the municipalities. They just want to cut programs that they think people will just magically be helped. They don't have a real plan for housing. We have a plan with a budget for it, which they are opposing. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
My plan has been for over a year that we should link the number of dollars big cities get for infrastructure to the number of houses they allow to get built so that we speed up and lower the cost of building permits, that we require every federally funded transit station have high-density housing around and on top, and that we sell off federal buildings to turn them into housing. He's tried to plagiarize that today, which is flattering, but it's interesting to note that his own housing agency predicts a 32% reduction in the number of houses built, a 50,000 unit decline. Why won't the Prime Minister put his action where his words now are, get out of the way, and let houses...
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, even by the standards of this House these past days, this is getting to be a pretty ridiculous debate. The fact of the matter is we will continue. I have the best plan. No, you have the best plan. No, you have the best plan. No, I have the best plan. Let's focus on delivering for Canadians every step of the way.
Sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. The noise level is starting to creep up again. I'm going to ask everyone to just calm down and take a deep breath. And I want to remind everyone that one person asks the question, one person gives a response, not multiple questions being asked while the person is answering. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's look at the respective records here. The Conservative Party campaigned in the last election on a single element of a housing plan, which was to give tax breaks to wealthy landlords in hopes of selling their buildings. That is not a plan to help Canadians. Our plan, which we've actually been delivering on since 2017 with the National Housing Strategy, is about $70 billion worth of investments working in partnership with municipalities, working in partnership with provinces and territories, linking investments in infrastructure to densification, moving forward on incentives to create better zoning so we can build more homes for more Canadians.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's rarely prudent to attack the independence or integrity of a media outlet, especially when the head of that outlet is Pierre-Carl Palladot. The next person I'm going to mention is also someone we need to be careful about, Gérard Bouchard. He said that it is right to be concerned about this 500,000 newcomers every year. This is a very respected person. So what does the Prime Minister have to say to Gérard Bouchard? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to for the experts, we're spending a lot more time talking to business people in Beauce and Abitibi who are having trouble getting enough workers for their businesses. They're concerned about, farmers are concerned about a labour shortage as well. So we are here to help to work hand in hand with Quebec City, which sets its own immigration targets, but we want to make sure that we protect French, that there's economic growth, and that those issues are always priorities, as well as Quebec business people. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, great answer. The CAQ, the PQ, Quebec Liberals, everyone's against these immigration levels. And here, only the Bloc is against 500,000 newcomers per year. Who agrees with that target, apart from the 25 people who took part in the debate at the Liberal Convention? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada and the Immigration Department consulted 3,000 different organizations and groups of Canadians in setting our immigration our immigration targets. We understand the importance of economic growth and labor, including in Quebec, including in the Gatineau, Montreal, on the North Shore. These businesses need workers. That's what we've been hearing, and we are here to make sure that there's enough immigration to meet the need. We will deliver for economic growth that everyone needs. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's story keeps changing when it comes to the threat posed by the Beijing regime. He says that no one outside CSIS was aware of what was going on, but his advisor, his national security advisor, admitted that they were aware. So who in the Prime Minister's team, of all his staff, in the public service and in PMO, who was aware of this threat? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, just yesterday, my 3 former advisors confirmed that that report was not received by their offices. We will always take these concerns of Canadians about foreign interference seriously, and that's why we have acted, and we will continue to take action seriously. The Conservative Party is playing partisan politics with this issue, but we will meanwhile continue to protect Canadians.
Prime Minister's own national security advisor told the member for Wellington Halton Hills that her office had received it when her predecessor was in charge. That predecessor would have been the direct advisor to this Prime Minister. It's important because if this Prime Minister's office or his top officials were aware that a foreign operative were threatening a Canadian MP's family back in July and that they did absolutely nothing about it, it demonstrates their unwillingness to protect our country. And if he wasn't aware, it demonstrates his total incompetence in protecting Canada. Which is it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, our intelligence agencies receive vast numbers of pieces of information and analyze threats to Canadians, to institutions, to our politics regularly. And they make determinations about which pieces of information hit the threshold to be able to need to pass up the chain and what kind of priority to meet on it. If it's what I have done over the past week is ensure that any threat, no matter how low the threshold, no matter how unsavory or unreliable the source, should be elevated if it talks about an MP and their families. Going forward, that will be the story. But this information...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, the Prime Minister is basically saying it just wasn't important enough for anyone to be informed that a Canadian MP had his family threatened by a foreign operative in order to punish him for a vote. Mr. Speaker, no one believes the Prime Minister when he says it. Everybody knows that that is among the highest importance. And if his government is operating in a way that that is not important, then clearly he cannot defend the national interest of this country. Mr. Speaker, recently we just had testimony from the chair of the Trudeau Foundation, who said that he can't tell us to whom the donation from Beijing was returned. Can the Prime Minister tell us?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Leader of the Opposition, I have to give credit where it's due, almost got it right in the beginning of his last question. It's that CSIS itself makes determinations on the credibility, the threat level, the seriousness of various informations that come in, and they make determinations, quite appropriately, about what to do with that information, how high to elevate it, how urgent it needs to be brought forward. One can draw certain conclusions about the decision they made based on certain elements of information as to the critical nature or the seriousness of the actual information.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was about the donation from Beijing to the Trudeau Foundation. Now, we know that the Prime Minister's own brother processed the donation. We know CSIS intelligence from an intercepted phone call of Beijing's diplomats revealed that the purpose of the donation was to politically influence this Prime Minister. But now the new development is that the chair of the Trudeau Foundation says he can't tell where the donation ended up. He says they gave it back, but they don't know who they gave it back to. Will the Prime Minister support new powers for the Auditor General to fully audit the Trudeau Foundation so that we can get to the bottom of this scandal?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the member of opposite fully knows, as all MPs have heard me say probably a dozen times in this House, it's been close to 10 years since I've had any direct or indirect engagement with the Trudeau Foundation. He needs to continue to direct his questions to them.
Yeah. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
First Nations are left out of major natural resource decisions because their right to the land is not recognized. The government has obligations.
His microphone wasn't working. Maybe just start from the top so we can hear the full question. Please, from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Saskatchewan, First Nations are left out of major decisions regarding natural resources because their right to the land is not recognized. The government has obligations to consult with provinces, territories, and First Nations and Indigenous peoples. Will the Prime Minister commit today to respect free, prior, and informed consent, and in Saskatchewan specifically and across Canada, ensure that economic benefits flow to Indigenous people when the resources are on their land?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a federal government, we are moving forward on legislating the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which includes free, prior, and informed consent. This is an important and historic step for the government that we're doing hand in hand with Indigenous peoples. Unfortunately, only some provinces are moving forward in that way, and we will continue to engage on these issues, but we also recognize the responsibility and the control that provinces have over their natural resources. We encourage everyone, however, to walk the path of reconciliation together.
The Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, the price for an unfurnished one-bedroom rental home in Metro Vancouver has climbed to $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month. Family, students, and seniors in Vancouver can't afford to live there. The housing crisis has only gotten worse under this Liberal government. They've allowed greedy corporate landlords to buy up homes, hike rents, and make it impossible for Canadians to secure affordable housing. When are the Liberals going to crack down on corporate landlords and make housing truly affordable?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've taken significant steps on supporting low-income renters, including a $500 housing benefit top-up, which the Conservatives voted against and tried to delay. We've investing to rapidly increase the supply of affordable rental units. We are introducing measures to end rent evictions, and that's on top of the significant measures we're working with municipalities on to create 100,000 new homes over the coming years as we accelerate the process of zoning and permitting. We're doing that hand in hand with municipalities in respect instead of in fights as the Conservatives propose, because we know that collaboration is the way to get things done.
The Honourable Member for Humber River Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday this House debated C-311, introduced by one of the most anti-choice members of this House, in a transparent effort by the Conservative Party to reopen the abortion debate in Canada. And Mr. Speaker, they don't just want women in Canada to not have the right to choose, they also oppose our support of women's reproductive rights abroad. So when it comes to reproductive rights in this country and around the world, what is the Prime Minister's position?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I thank the member for Humber River Blackkeek for her question and her tireless work on so many files. Our government is unapologetically feminist and pro-choice. Since 2020, we've provided almost $500 million to support women's sexual and reproductive health and rights around the world. That includes funding for abortion health care, which previous Conservative Conservative governments recklessly refused to support. We know that the fight for women and girls' rights around the world is far.
I'm going to have to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister again. It's just starting to get a little noisy again. I missed part of it. I'm going to ask him to start over, please.
Mr. Speaker, our government is unapologetically feminist and pro-choice. Since 2020, we've provided almost $500 million to support women's sexual and reproductive health and rights around the world. That includes funding for abortion health care, which the previous Conservative government refused to support. We know the fight for women and girls' rights around the world is far from over. That's why yesterday we announced Canada's candidacy to the UN Human Rights Council. While the Conservative Party attacks in this House a woman's right to choose, we're defending it at home and abroad.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What the Prime Minister is doing is massively increasing the drug overdose crisis in this country. He has been providing taxpayer dollars for high-powered drugs that have flooded our streets and lowered the cost of hydromorphine on the streets by as much as 95% in Vancouver, leading to the deaths of 30,000 Canadians. Will the Prime Minister back away from his reckless plan to join with the NDP in BC and decriminalize crack, heroin, and other deadly drugs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the toxic drug and overdose crisis continues to take a tragic toll on families, loved ones, and communities. We're using every tool at our disposal to work with our partners to end this national public health crisis. Since 2017, we've committed to more than $1 billion to address the overdose crisis, and we're taking concrete steps to divert people who use drugs away from the criminal justice system. The evidence is clear. Harm reduction measures save lives. Some 46,000 overdoses have been reversed since 2017. We will continue to trust the science.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The science shows is that, and I'll quote Giuseppe Ganci, the head of Last Door Recovery, 100% of all the people I've met who are on safer supply sell their supply. I've never met anybody who's taken all of it. Why do they sell it? Because while it's powerful enough to get a high to begin with, it loses its strength with use, and so it gets sold to kids, and the profits are then used for fentanyl. And then those kids buy the fentanyl when the hydromorphine is not.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt there. It's getting noisy again. From the top, please, just start off. I just want everybody to listen to each other, listen to whoever's speaking, and then when the answer comes, please, everyone listen to the answer as well. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, please.
Furthermore, to quote a recent article on the matter, according to some experts I spoke to, this has caused the price of hydromorphine, the primary opioid dispensed at safer supply sites, to drop by an estimated 70 to 95% in cities with safer supply programs. In other words, the only thing that has been exempt from the Prime Minister's inflation is the powerful drugs that are killing people, because he's subsidizing them and flooding them into our streets, including through dispensaries. Will the Prime Minister finally put an end to the deadly policies he's put in place that are killing our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the ongoing opioids epidemic is taking far too many lives across the country, whether it's families, whether it's workers, whether it's communities from coast to coast to coast. And we need to stay grounded in the science and the evidence and how we're going to respond to it. Now, the Conservatives' ideologically driven solutions are good for bumper stickers, Mr. Speaker, but they are not effective in supporting people in moving forward on a health-based approach to opioids, in making sure we are supporting people and getting them through this. We will continue with harm reduction.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
To be blunt, his policies are killing people. The number of deaths, the number of overdose deaths that have happened in this country, and in British Columbia in particular, where the policies of this government and the NDP are most advanced, are up by 300%. Those deaths were 75% lower before these policies came into place. But worse, beyond just subsidizing deadly drugs, now he wants to decriminalize crack, heroin, cocaine in partnership with the NDP government in BC. This policy is insane. It is killing people. Will the Prime Minister reverse it before it's too late for more Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the ideological fear-mongering coming from the Conservatives is all too typical and all too unfortunate. We have seen this kind of rhetoric before.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to stop everything again. We'll wait a few seconds. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, since we just started, please start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, the ideological fear-mongering from the Conservatives is alarming. It is the kind of rhetoric that we've seen all too often from the American far right and now here in Canada. We need to stay grounded in what the frontline responders are telling us, in what the frontline doctors and health experts have been doing to save lives across the country. We will continue to work on a harm reduction approach. We will continue to work with frontline partners. We will not be swayed by the ideological approach of the Conservatives on supporting people as we fight this epidemic.
The Leader of the Opposition.
What is truly alarming is a walk through many of our inner city streets. There he will see tent cities where people are lying face first on the ground because he has flooded those streets with taxpayer-funded drugs, and he has signed a deal with the NDP to decriminalize crack, heroin, cocaine, meth, and other drugs. He has imported this ideological and extremist policy from failed big American cities where the result has been exactly the same. So will he finally abandon his reckless and extremist policies in favor of a common sense plan that gives recovery and bring home our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it feels like it's deja vu all over again. We spent years in opposition fighting against the Stephen Harper ideological approach that stood against harm reduction, that allowed people to die in the streets, that criminalized drug users. Mr. Speaker, that failed, and Canadians chose a different path in 2017, one grounded in evidence and science and compassion and a health approach to treating addictions, not a justice system approach to treating victims. We will not take any lessons from that ideologically driven, fact-free Conservative Party of Canada.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the idea of a larger workforce and one that is thus less expensive is a specialty of McKinsey. This is a party that has ignored French in their proposals. The so-called progressives in this House should be ashamed of that policy, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister saying, I receive cheap labor and you will pay? And will he'll know tomorrow from the Journal de Montréal, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, business people across Quebec and across the country need a bigger labor force, and our communities want to welcome new families to close the gaps and to help the economic growth that's on course. So we're not just talking about new arrivals, but new Canadians, new Quebecers who are going to build our country for generations to come. So yes, we're going to continue to be there to defend French, to ensure Francophone immigration, but we're also going to be there to create opportunities for everyone in both official languages to create a solid economic growth. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we have a Prime Minister who is just about to refer to himself in the third person. He says that he's consulted 3,000 organizations or individuals, but not Quebec, because you don't consult people you're about to harm. So there are more and more people who are realizing and writing that the only solution is Quebec sovereignty. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, all of a sudden, we can see what the Bloc Québécois is focusing on. All they want is squabbling between Ottawa and Quebec. All they want is squabbling with the federal government because it doesn't interest them that Canada should have solid economic growth. They are not interested in having us create bilingual communities with two flourishing official languages. They don't want a stronger Canada. And they've already lost 2 referendums, Mr. Speaker. So I think that's going to continue. And we're going to continue to work with the Quebec government and Quebecers to deliver a strong future in French. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Here are the choices. The Prime Minister is generally outside of the country. The Bloc Québécois wants a referendum to break up the country. Only the Conservative Party wants a stronger, more affordable country where people have a better paycheck. Those are the choices. Speaking of choice, the Prime Minister wants to put in place a second carbon tax that's going to increase gas prices. How much are Canadians going to have to pay for this second carbon tax that the Prime Minister is seeking to put in place? How much? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, several years ago, we decided that here in Canada, it would not be free to pollute, and we ensured that across the country that a price was put on pollution. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, we also gave more money. We put more money into working-class Canadians' pockets to ensure that by fighting climate change, we continue to invest in a decent standard of living for Canadians. And that works not only in reducing emissions, which is currently happening, but also to strengthen economic growth and ensure good jobs for Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. So the Prime Minister and the government has been disseminating false information about the number of belugas in Canadian waters to ensure that the paychecks for the people from the Saguenay were cut. There's double the number of belugas that the government had said. So will the government come back on its position to ensure that people in the Saguenay can get jobs and have a decent paycheck? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is showing that he knows absolutely nothing about what is going on in Quebec. That's a real problem for him, but that'll be his problem. We know full well that by working with the Quebec government on the LNG project, it is the Quebec government that first rejected this project. The federal government then did its job, and the reality is that we need to work hand in hand with the provinces instead of squabbling, and we need to know how it works in a federation. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Yes, but I want Jean-Marie Tremblay from Saguenay to have a decent paycheck.
Prime Minister and the German Chancellor both asked this Prime Minister for LNG. He said, no, call Putin. He'll provide it to you instead, claiming there's no business case. Well, nobody told the Americans who have built 6 LNG plants in the same time as the Prime Minister has blocked 18. Will the Prime Minister get out of the way so that we can turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know well that clever buzzwords is not a plan to grow the economy and create opportunities for the middle class right across the country. Mr. Speaker, energy workers in Alberta, forestry workers in Quebec, miners right across the north know that the opportunities we have while fighting climate change, while building a cleaner economy, by getting to that net zero economy that the world expects, we are going to be able to create more great jobs for the middle class. Meanwhile, they continue to stick their head in the sands and refuse to accept that climate change is real and that you can't build an economy.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Louis.
Local news is essential, and voters count on it to remain informed. When the Liberal government legislates to ensure that community journalism is fairly remunerated for the use of its content, what was Facebook's answer? To censor the news. The crony of big tech, the Conservative leader, is very pleased to accept the lame excuses of the billionaire web giants to the detriment of middle-class Canadians. What does the Prime Minister think of this shameful scorn for Canadians' rightful access to news, which is fundamental to democracy? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Lac Saint Louis for his question and his hard work. Facebook's practices did not work in Australia, and they're not going to work in Canada. The worst, though, is to see the Conservative members continue to defend web giants and run after American billionaires to help them attack local news. While the Conservative leader continues to be on the side of tech giants, we're going to continue to be on the side of Francophone and rural communities to ensure that local news has ready access. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition
continues with his ridiculous claim that there's no business case for the 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas we have here in Canada. Nobody told the Americans who built 6 export plants. Nobody told the Qataris who are increasing their production by 66%. Nobody told the Mexicans who are using a formerly Canadian company, TransCanada, to bypass and exceed Canada's export potential. We could be shutting down dirty Asian coal fire and replacing it with clean Canadian LNG, and we could turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. Why won't the Prime Minister finally bring it home?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader of the official opposition will never get the facts in the way of a good political argument. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, this is the government that approved a historic $40 billion LNG Canada investment by Shell and Asian partners to export LNG to Asian economies to replace coal, to make sure that we are contributing in a strong way. We will continue to move forward on ensuring a cleaner energy future for people around the world. Canada and Canadian workers, especially in the energy sector, deserve to be part of the future we're building, and we're making sure they will.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually, the LNG Canada project was approved before the Prime Minister even took office. He showed up for the photo op. And you know the only way that it could get built? Exempting it from the carbon tax and exempting it from C-69. There were 18 proposed LNG projects on his desk the day he walked in. On his first day on the job, 0 have been completed. That's because his gatekeeping keeps our resources in the ground and the money in the pockets of foreign dictators. Why won't he bring it home to Canada for our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, we're suddenly back in the Stephen Harper era where Conservatives continue to think that you can just drive a pipeline anywhere you want, build a plant, move.
I'm going to interrupt. There's some shouting going back and forth, more going back than forth. But I just want to remind everyone that when the person asks a question, we listen. When the person answers the question, we listen as well. Whether we like the question or the answer, unfortunately, that's not up to me to decide. We listen, and then we'll make some judgments later. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, under Stephen Harper, Conservatives were the most pro-oil and gas of any government we had ever had, and yet they couldn't get a damn thing built, Mr. Speaker. They didn't understand that working with communities, that working together with Canadians, that fighting climate change is the only way to get things built, and that's how we're the ones able to move forward with the twinning of the Trans Mountain Pipeline that they were unable to get done. They failed the energy sector, Mr. Speaker, with their ideological approach. We are delivering.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's bragging about the Trans Mountain project. He said it would cost $7 billion to get it done. It has cost $30 billion, and it's still not complete. This is And by the way, the money he spent went to Kinder Morgan, a foreign company that took it to build pipelines in Texas, Mr. Speaker. Under this Prime Minister, all of our exes are in Texas. Why won't he bring jobs, resource production, and opportunity home to Canada so we can put paychecks back in the pockets of our people?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we just heard it from the Conservative Party of Canada. We shouldn't have moved forward with the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion. We disagree, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we're actually getting it done. But, Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite really cared about creating great jobs for the middle class, he'd be understanding that you cannot grow the economy unless you fight climate change at the same time. That's why Volkswagen is coming to invest in Canada. That's why Sayona is building lithium mines in Quebec. That's why Stellantis and Ford and GM and investors like Michelin and Rio Tinto and Lion Electric continue to invest in our supply chain, in our future, and in great jobs for Canadians.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Speaker, the Conservatives don't believe in a woman's right to choose. Conservative MPs introduced legislation to reopen the abortion debate. They will march with anti...
Okay, order. Order. Order.
Did you read the bill?
Order.
Read the bill.
Order. Very good. Now we'll hear what the question is. The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Speaker, the Conservatives don't believe in a woman's right to choose. Conservative MPs introduced legislation to reopen the abortion debate. They will march with anti-choice activists.
I'm not sure how many times I have to start this question over so that I can hear it, but I'm going to ask everyone to listen. Again, we don't have a choice on what the question is or what the answer is. Ours is to listen, everyone in here, and then we can debate it at another time if we want. The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain, hopefully for the last time.
Speaker, the Conservatives don't believe in a woman's right to choose. Conservative MPs introduced legislation to reopen the abortion debate. They will march with anti-choice activists tomorrow. They are beholden to Campaign Life Coalition and other groups that want to bring Republican-style abortion restrictions to this country, and the leader of the opposition uses misogynistic hashtags in his YouTube videos. It's clear Conservatives want to control women's bodies in Canada. What does the Prime Minister believe?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Hamilton Martin for her questioning and her continued advocacy on women's rights. Let me be clear. Abortion is health care in Canada. A woman's right to choose is hers and hers alone. We will always stand with Canadian women and the vast majority of Canadians on this, which is why it's so disappointing to see yet another thinly veiled attempt by the Conservative Party of Canada to restrict a woman's right to choose. And they're busy getting ready to march tomorrow in an anti-choice protest. We will be busy standing up for fundamental rights, including a woman's right to choose.
The honourable member for Edmonton Griesbach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of Albertans have been evacuated due to out-of-control wildfires. They don't know when they'll go home or what they'll go home to. Métis settlements and First Nations communities are hit worst of all. The federal government has a responsibility to ensure that the safety of Indigenous evacuees and provide them with the basics like water, food, and shelter. What does this Prime Minister have to say to the thousands of Albertans who are, as we speak, without basic necessities right now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my message to Albertans, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, is the same as our message to all Canadians who faced terrible extreme weather events over the past years. We will be there for them. We will continue to work with the provincial government. I spoke to Premier Smith just on Monday to assure that we were going to be there with CAF supports, with resources, with whatever was needed. We will be there to work with the Red Cross, and I can encourage Canadians to continue to donate generously to the wildfire relief through the Red Cross to help families who are displaced. We will continue to work with Indigenous communities to ensure that they continue to lead on the safety of their communities. We know we will work together. And
the honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians overwhelmingly support creating a citizens' assembly on electoral reform.
Hear, hear.
This past weekend, Liberal Party members strongly voted in support of it too.
Yes, they did.
Yet, the Prime Minister won't make electoral reform a priority. And so, if not Canadians, and if not his own party, who else does the PM need to hear from before he's ready to act?
Good question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, as members in this House know, I am committed and I continue to be hopeful about replacing the first-past-the-post system with a preferential ballot. I moved forward in 2015 to live up to that promise and to find consensus in this House of Commons, because when you change something as fundamental as the way we elect this House, it has to be done with consensus. Unfortunately, there was no consensus on moving forward with a ranked ballot, and therefore we chose not to do it. I continue to be open. If anyone wants to move forward with a preferential ballot, I'm happy to talk with them, but we will not impose a change on Canadians.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the finalists for the 2023 Shaughnessy Cohen Prize for Political Writing: Norma Dunning, Dale Eisler, Josh O'Kane, Andrew Stobo Snyderman, Douglas Sanderson, Chris Turner, following the discussion among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in honor of our former colleague, the Honourable Marc Lalonde.
I now invite honourable members to rise.
Thank you. It being 15:24 or 3:24 p.m., pursuant to order made on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the question of privilege in the name of Mr. Chong. Convoqué.
Call in the members.